like you're a little tired today.
I'm about at the end, man. I had somebody canceled a huge transaction on me. My hemp business fell off at the end of the year. My coffee shop's not doing well. I'm about done.
Oh, I'm tagging you now. Don't be
They
done.
they've
Forever be done.
won.
No, no,
Israel's
no.
won.
They never can win. They never can win. Hang on, I'm gonna tag you now. We should already be live. They can never win, brother. You can't ever let them see you sweat. Never let them see you sweat. You know what? I think I did this before. I have no idea how to tag you. I always start this wrong way. I don't have. I thought it used to automatically tag you. Facebook is always changing stuff. It's crazy.
Yep. So they can monitor us better.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun,
Right.
dun, dun.
Nope, that's not gonna work.
It's horrible.
I'm gonna share it on your timeline. That's what we'll do.
When did it start?
When did what start?
I don't know. I can see us on your page, but I can't tell what we're talking about.
Oh, okay. We're talking about drugs, man. We're gonna talk about drugs. We're gonna talk about that drug called hemp, right?
Sure.
Drugs, Schedule 1, a horrible, dangerous thing. We haven't talked about this in a while. How long has that been?
Well, I kept trying to get you.
You kept trying to get me? What happened? You couldn't get me?
Well, we were supposed to do this like, I don't know, 2-3 months ago. And then you were going to call me, never called me. And then, yeah, I don't know. And then I kind of quit watching, tried to stay off Facebook in general. And then I started popping back on. So I thought, why not?
My apologies, brother. I had no idea. I figured that you got busy. The hemp business is hot and popping. Although I know that you're out in a real heavy competitive area. So I figured you got a little bit.
It was all right at the beginning of the year, and I did a lot of consulting. It's just that I had 4 workshops canceled because they weren't ready with the houses. So, and it's the same cycle again. Unfortunately, I get email after email. Hey, when's your next workshop? And then when I post the schedule, I'm like, hey, here's my workshops. I'm like, crickets. So all these people, and then another thing is if I do get contacted after I've got a schedule set up, nobody wants to pay. And I try to explain to them, you understand the way I make money is I teach people how to build with this, and then you pay me to teach you. And then everybody wanted the discounter to come with free, and, oh, I'm poor. And I'm like, well, now I'm poor because of all you people that don't want to pay to come to my workshops. So I'm not going to do workshops anymore.
Yeah, see, that's the problem with like starting out in a hippie industry, because it's like people who are like, I think, evolving a little faster, and they're understanding that if the planet dies, we die. If the bees die, we die. They're cheap people. They're quite frugal. They make their own soaps and lotions, and it's hard to get them to buy anything. It's hard to get them because they don't have tons of money. But I mean, hemp is transitioning, though. I mean, I'm starting to see like big warehouses and buildings being made of hemp. So it's transitioning more into the mainstream, place where they don't want their warehouse full of their products to burn down. So they want the warehouse to be made of hemp.
Sure.
It's like, yeah, okay, sure. If you say so. Not here.
I haven't seen any warehouses in the United States yet. I mean, the biggest buildings I've seen are in there's a factory in England I think they built out of hemp. Actually, here it's probably on the back of my book here. If I can, my camera sucks, but on this laptop. But if you can see this building, this is a factory with a green roof.
Yeah,
that's a big building. That's just a townhouse, and then I'm trying to see. There's one in here where they did a department store. So England, and there's a guy in the Ukraine that's just going nuts building these gorgeous domes. But I've made a rule not to endorse anybody else's company in public, so you can look it up. Ukrainian Hempcrete builder, but and the guy's legit. Unfortunately, this year, I've seen ever since they legalized hemp in 2019, it was me, one other guy in Colorado, and then some people on the West Coast doing the Hempcrete. Now this year, my Instagram is full of Hempcrete builders, so everybody's doing it, which is great. There's plenty of room.
Yeah.
But it's the way they approach it. I asked this guy who kept posting all these things about blocks, which the blocks are not commercially viable yet. I mean, there's just Biofiber. Sorry, there's a company name drop because they're the only ones doing like what I would consider scientifically researched blocks. They were all the rage about a year ago, and then it was like radio silence. I saw one article about them this year, but to me that suggests they're probably not ready to go to market like they thought they were. Okay. But so I asked this kid who had all these blocks, and he's like, come to my workshop. And I was like, how long have you been building with Hempcrete? He goes, 3 years. I said, I've never heard of you. And I pretty much knew everybody in the country who was building if they had any sort of a presence. And he's like, well, yeah, 3 years. I go, what have you built? He goes, a doghouse. I was like, really? Okay. All right. Yeah, whatever. You got to start somewhere. But
he was in the doghouse sector. That's all right. That's okay. It's a sector. It's a growing. It's an emerging market.
And I mean, and I would like to see it to where every town you go to, you know, you've got blown-in insulation, you've got Hempcrete insulation. Right. But right now, it's this mad rush. You know, I don't know. They started. I don't know. I'm a little. I'm excited about hemp, but I think what I'm going to end up doing is building myself a Hempcrete house and then calling it good.
Okay, well, you know that's still a good thing. You got to build mine too. So, you do a hemp tiny house.
Yep, I can do anything with checkbooks.
You know what? Can't you do hemp tiny houses and put them on the back of trailers and deliver them to people?
Somebody did. Well, so my theory was that hemp is a little bit plastic, but which means it can flex and not break. But to me, if you're driving it around a lot like you would an RV, I would think over time it's just going to crack, especially when you're out and inside walls are covered with plaster. So plaster doesn't do well sometimes when it's sitting in place. You see these old houses that have big cracks from the plaster settling. And then the one person that was driving around, it's another one of these pop-up companies that's come up in the last year. They had a hemp house they were taking all over. And I asked him one day on Instagram, like, how's that holding up? Oh, there's some cracks around the doors. And I'm like, that's just what I figured. I mean, I wouldn't build one to move around. It's a cool idea, but I mean, especially in a thick wall. Well, for delivery, sure. Yeah,
just for delivery. That's what I was thinking is that, you know, you could just actually manufacture them. Put them on the back. I mean, that's what our Amish friends do down here. Like they just basically make a bunch of sheds and even houses even now, and they just have them out there in a parking lot, and people come out and say, "I want that house or that shed," and they deliver it to you. So throw it on the back.
You remember the old Sears catalog houses?
Oh, I remember Sears catalog, not for the houses. I remember the Sears.
Let me see. I've got one of those sitting back.
I remember it for the underwear section. I don't remember for the houses. I listen. My father didn't play that. He was big time.
This is a 1902 replica Sears catalog.
Oh, you still got one?
Yes, I've got it. Well, it's a replica that my great uncle gave me, so it's 1902.
Oh, it's got the Roebuck name. Yeah, that's old. Yeah, that's before they threw off Roebuck.
And I mean, they have everything here. So I see what you're saying, and I like the idea of doing prefab sheds. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things I wanted to do. I can't believe all the stuff you could buy at Sears back in the day. Everything from your guns to your sewing kits.
That's right. And Lori already posted, and your bras too, and your granny panties. That's
I mean,
all
but they have hemp carpet in these too back in the day. There's actually hemp stair treads. There's all kinds of stuff.
Where did they get their hemp back then?
Well, so, you know, I think we've talked about this before, but I'm pretty sure the word canvas is derived from the word cannabis because all of the tents, all the army tents, all the canvas that you used to see was made from hemp. So that means all the tents in the Civil War, World War I, probably up to World War II were all made from hemp fabric. As a matter of fact, here's some tents right there. You can kind of see, you can even buy your big army tents at Sears if you wanted, you know. In case you need to set up an infirmary on the side of the road to treat your wounded soldiers or whatever. But
Exactly.
anyway, I won't spend too much time looking for this. I know they have the houses in here somewhere. But so I wanted to do like a tough shed, right? So you go to Home Depot and you buy these sheds that are made from OSB, and they're just total pieces of junk if they get wet. In the summer, they're hotter than hell because there's no insulation. So I thought, man, for a little bit more, you could build a shed that would last you literally 50 to 100 years, instead of these little sheds.
Right.
But and people, one of the questions, of course, they get asked all the time, were how much is it compared to conventional construction? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want your house to fall apart, or do you want something that's going to last a while? Because you might want to weigh that, when you're determining how much money you're going to spend. And most of these people, like in Colorado, I mean, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for these stick houses that, I mean, flood. You got to tear the walls out if it floods. Hempcrete, theoretically, you don't have to do that. The indoor air quality is just horrific because they're sealed. They're using forced air furnaces. And that's one of the things I start the conversation with when they want to compare apples to oranges is imagine not having to spend $50,000 on an HVAC system. You're already way ahead of the game. So when you look at things that you don't need in a hemp house or a straw bale house, you're saving a ton of money, especially with maintenance. I mean, with your electricity, I mean, your heating bills are going to drop off the map. My neighbor behind me lives in a 2,100 square foot straw bale house. So it's got 18-inch thick walls where Hempcrete, you're at 12 inches. But I can walk in that house when it's 100 degrees out and it's 65. I mean, it's just amazing.
It's nice and cool. Well, listen, I got a sale for you on my commission too. Christine, she wants to know the price on the Hempcrete. You see it?
Yeah, I see it. I'd have to figure it out. There's a lot of variables when you figure up a house. Basically, what you're doing, since you're talking about a volume and your wall is going to be 12 inches thick, you have to figure out the cubic footage, not the square footage. So the square footage just tells me the overall size of the house. And the numbers are pretty close because you're multiplying the length times the height of the wall times 1, which is 12 inches, 1 foot. But when you get into doing hempcrete in the roof, that pretty much doubles the amount of hemp herd you need because your roof's the same square footage as almost the whole building is, all the walls. But it depends on how tall they want the walls. The house I did in Texas was 10-foot walls and 12-inch thick. I mean, it took about 9 or 10 of us a good week to knock out 1,000 square feet. But then when you consider, you're 12 inches thick and then 10 feet tall, it was a lot of hempcrete. And one of the things I've been trying to do for the last 6 months is get a spray rig because the companies in France, there's a couple, I think, but one's called Euromer, for example. They've invented a spray rig specifically for hemp. And so I'm trying to get one because that cuts the time to install the hempcrete from like 10 or 15 people in a week down to 2 people in a day. I mean, you can move that fast.
That's insane.
And that's when you talk about doing it commercially, because that's what I want to do at this point. I don't want to teach people hempcrete. There's books online all day. You can go buy a book and read about it and learn how to do it.
It's the fun hippie way.
Yeah, the fun hippie way. But what I want to do is install it commercially. I want to go around the country, as often as I can. And I mean, there's 370 million people, right? And the way they throw these houses up, it's easy. And sandy season, I can get hemp all day long, every day of the week from Canada with no problem whatsoever. And it's the perfect refined type of hemp you need for hempcrete.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, everybody's growing now. Like farmers are going nuts now. And you have a lot of people who are growing for the first season and their first harvest. They're having problems and they go back to soy and corn. But, I think that if we're going to do anything like approach housing for people who don't have houses, for the homeless, for people who are, backwards in their mortgage, people who lost jobs, like I like what you're talking about with this blowing hempcrete, because we do need to proceed like we might be coming into tough times. Like we do need to proceed like people can't afford $500,000 homes and $300,000 homes, houses that they bought in great economical times or great times for the economy. And now we're coming into a slowdown and perhaps a backing away from the currency by most other nations, removing of America's the reserve currency. So that's a great idea. You have two guys or gal, guy and gal, build a house, blowing it in one day. You actually, it would seem like it would be something viable if you had a government that actually cared about its people and actually was looking out for its homeless, that wanted to perhaps build cities, like instead of putting drones on the street of San Francisco or LA, I forgot where it was, to shock homeless people, they're putting spikes on the chairs and benches. Just build communities of hemp houses where people can go live, you know, but getting people out of their expensive fire tinderbox houses that cost $500,000 and getting them to a more cost efficient hemp house anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Colorado. Like in the 7 years I've lived here, I mean, they've had the first year I moved here, it was wildfires. The second year I was here was the flood. The third year I was here, I think it was actually quiet. But now we're having, I mean, we've got 8 inches of snow. It's October 28th. I mean, it's the weirdest. You know, we didn't have any moisture for all summer.
Snow?
And all of a sudden, there's all this moisture. And they've been spraying the hell out of the skies, but that's a different episode. Anyway, what people need to do, I think, is when I see a city that's actually doing something for the homeless, I got to think it's maybe a handful of people within the confines of that city government that are able to get something done. Because I think for the most part, you're right. They're you know, they've destroyed the middle class. They don't want people to get up. I had this argument with someone the other day about this bootstrap crap that might have been true in 1940, but it's not true anymore. I mean, I've got 2 degrees. I've got 2 businesses and I am broke. So I don't know what else to do besides jump.
I know what you do. Deborah Chandler just nailed it. I know what you do. You do some testing and find out how 5G, how well it penetrates a hemp house. You do some study or research into protecting you from these what is it, the little power boxes and the that is causing all this cancer, and the 4G that causes cancer, let alone the 5G. You start building houses with some sort of guarantee that it reduces the waves coming in from 5G. Oh, you'll sell out. That is a great point, Deborah.
Well, I mean, one of the things I want to do in my own house is I'm going to do copper chicken wire. I mean, to me, build a Faraday cage inside of your Hempcrete house, and I think a Faraday cage would block a 5G signal. I know it's a shortwave microwave, but supposedly a Faraday cage blocks everything.
Well, from an electromagnetic EMF perspective, it blocks a lot. But I think where she's going, where trees, like they're cutting down trees for 5G, and that was like the weak link. They realized that plant matter, it affects the signal significantly, it absorbs it. So if you're building out hemp, you would think that it probably, you got a thick enough wall, it should be able to almost stop the signal, you would think.
Yeah, 12-inch wall, I think, would do the trick. It's an excellent sound deadener. One of the other companies that was building just kind of as a hobby here in Colorado a couple of years back, I mean, the guy did ballistics test. He was out there shooting blocks to see if it would stop a bullet, and it stopped bullets. So,
like what, 30-06? Like what kind of bullet?
He shot there. He had a 44, a 45. I mean, he was shooting with some big stuff, and it was stopping it. So that's the clay binder mixed with that, you know, locked in with all the hemp pieces that are probably doing that. It's almost like a Kevlar kind of thing, you know. When it gets hit, it probably, you know, locks it in. But
I like the sound of that for walls too. I have to go back to Lori's comment. This is exactly what an oligarchy does not want, right? They want a dependent population. They do not want people independent, being able to take care of themselves in safe homes that are cost efficient, that are energy efficient, that don't catch on fire. Hashtag California's on fire. They probably didn't set their own fires. That's another whole topic as well. That's exactly what they don't want. And people, you know, like I think more and more, they really have to really start to question if this is a good direction, you know, for us to go in terms of what we support, right? They'll subsidize planting genetically modified, carcinogen sprayed glyphosate food all day long, soy and corn. Why aren't they subsidizing the growing of hemp? Why aren't they subsidizing anything natural? Why aren't they subsidizing the building of houses that people need going into a tough economy?
I've stopped asking those questions.
So do I. Brother, we on
They
TV.
they
I
just
only ask them for fun. I know
yeah
the answer.
yeah they just won't. They won't. I
I
mean,
know, right? Right. Well, the answer
and
is ugly, but
yeah,
people
it's
aren't ready to
ugly.
hear that answer. I just like to ask the question, let you answer me.
Well, look, when you stop and look at everything that's going on, I mean, come on. I know you saw the guy the guy who had the maps of California and he showed you the 7 ignition points from
Okay.
space that
Okay.
started these fires after
Ooh,
PG&E
I
shut their
see that.
power off. Oh,
Oh
it's
wow.
you watch High Impact Vids, right? You know that guy
I've seen
on
him
YouTube.
once.
Well, he's got a guy who's that's what he does is he watches these satellites, I guess, and he shows in his video, and I can't think of his name. He shows these 7 simultaneous flashes all over Central California, and they're ignition points. I mean, if you can see a
Almost.
bright light from space, that's an explosion.
Wow. So wait a minute.
Um,
What is he looking with?
well, he's looking at like a Doppler radar. I mean, I don't think it's like top secret stuff. I mean, I think he just downloads these satellite images that are available, and
Oh, I
all of
got
a
to see
sudden at this
that.
one time, I'll send it to you in a link, but they just go off. This is after PG&E shut the power off, but the same day that the fire started. So I'm like, get out of here. You know, it's just nuts. But anyway, so that's just one thing. So what I
People aren't
wanted to,
ready to hear that though. They don't want to
I
hear. They
know,
don't want to hear that.
I
Their
know, I know.
government
But
loves them. They don't want to hear that. The kings and
if
lords love them. They're not into prima nocta anymore.
if people would stop for just a second and I mean admit to themselves that when they were kids, anybody over 30, there were no stripes or tic-tac-toe boards in the skies ever. You know, the contrail behind the jet was
It was
about an inch
gone.
from where it was at. It looked like it was about an inch and then it disappeared. There were never 2 mile, 10 mile long things. So, and you know, there's been History Channel episodes, and I still think the reason why they started showing swamp people on the History Channel was because they didn't want educational programming of any kind on television. That's why the History Channel is now
Really?
like crap. I mean, yeah, because look, they had a whole episode on directed energy weapons. You can go online and watch it. They had a whole episode on HARP and bending the ionosphere and weather modification.
Hmm.
I mean, they're out there. You can go watch these whole episodes and they explain exactly what they're doing. But that being said, I just wanted to point out that 2 years ago, when California first started burning continuously, 2 of the houses that survived were straw bale houses. It didn't touch the houses
Ooh, do
because,
you have a picture of that?
okay, so go to, it's called Transmineral is their US based name, but it's Saint Astiers, Astiers. And for a long time, they had those 2 houses on their homepage of their website because it was their plaster. Now that's the company I buy binder from to do my hempcrete. They're an awesome company. They're based in France. Like I said, France has been doing hempcrete for 35 plus years. They're the experts.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I want to buy this spray rig from them because they know what they're doing. They've already got it dialed in. I'm not going to reinvent the hemp sprayer.
So wait a
But
minute.
I just need investors to buy it.
You got me here. So you're telling me that there were. I'm just see if I can make this a little bigger. There
2
were
houses directly in the path of the fire, and all it did was discolor the plaster. Yeah, the ones in the upper left-hand corner.
these 2 right here.
Those 2 right there. So that's before the fire and after the fire, and you see the house is barely
Wow.
touched. And my understanding
Wow.
was it was in a direct path. Like every other house burned to the
Wow.
ground except that one.
You
So
can
you're
see
right.
where the grass caught on fire and the grass burned up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And all it
And
did
the
was,
house is just chilling with the light on. Not a problem.
yeah, same thing with
That's
hempcrete.
awesome. That is awesome.
So with lime plaster, it's like trying to light a rock on fire. You're not going to do it. It's limestone.
And when was this last year?
I think it was 2 years ago at this point. I think it was
So wait a
2017.
minute. So let me process this. So for 2 years, we've known that straw bale walls, straw bale houses don't catch on fire, and California didn't do a damn thing to help their people get into straw bale houses. The only thing that they thought to do was wait 2 damn years and shut everybody's power off.
And then burn the rest of the houses down while they could. See,
Oh my gosh. So listen, that's the hashtag of the day anyway. Straw bale houses aren't affected by direct energy weapons. Wow. That's
Yeah.
impressive. That is I love that. I love that. That's delicious.
And you could
Good
expect
call
the
on that.
exact same thing with hemp. I mean, it's just not combustible.
Goodness
Every
gracious.
house, I watch these subdivisions fly up around Colorado here, and I'm not kidding. They build at least, I would say, 20 subdivisions in Boulder County,
Mm.
much to the chagrin of the trees that they wipe out every time they go to build houses. I was going to get online and complain about Boulder County being the one of the biggest murderer of trees because every time a project starts, first thing you do is go in and wipe out these 100-year-old trees, cottonwoods, pines. But anyway, all these houses these people buy are just as flammable as can be. And the thing that
Mm.
kills me is people are always like, well, is Hempcrete up to code? I'm like, there's no code for it, but guess what? Your up to code house will burn within about 30 minutes if it catches
Mm.
on fire. You couldn't light a Hempcrete house on fire if you had 30 minutes to try.
This is my favorite picture right here. The one with the blowtorch. When I watched a guy do that, it
For
blew
an
me
hour.
away.
Yeah.
He just sat there and held it. He could not catch the hemp block on fire. It was insane. And it's we mentioned it the first time we talked about this. Like, you know how many people die in house fires every single year in this country? How in the world are houses still being made out of flammable materials? It's insanity.
It's where the industry's at. So, and hemp is mold and mildew resistant, Deb, which I think she knows. She's just putting that question out there.
Yeah, we
Uh,
do that. That's what we have to do. We don't ask
yeah, no,
questions new people don't understand. They just
but so
Thank
at
you,
the end of the
Deborah.
day, the one fire test that I had access to in one of the books I had, I think I left it in Jamaica for a friend of mine, but it's Chris Magwood's book on the essentials of hempcrete. The test was carried out in Canada. They exposed a wall to 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, the entire one side of the wall, so much bigger than this blowtorch. It took 76 minutes, an hour and 16 minutes for that wall to fail. No black smoke. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no other way to build in my book. Fiberglass is atrocious. It takes a ton of energy. I thought the guy was joking, but I mean, what? Oh, it's gigawatts in whatchamacallit, Back to the Future.
Back to the future.
But
Yeah.
but
Gigawatts.
gigawatts are very real. And I was talking to one of the guys at Johns Manville, which is the competitor to Owens Corning. Matter of fact, they were the ones that at least took formaldehyde out of fiberglass before Owens Corning bothered to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one less thing you get to breathe in. But he told me they melt sand with electricity. Their factories are on the order of gigawatts, which I think is more than most cities use. So
Yeah.
they're wasting all this energy to make fiberglass insulation, which is horrible. It's one of the worst things in the world to work with, when we could just be growing this plant, mixing it with lime, putting it in the walls. It's
But
nuts.
yeah. Well, you know what? It's better than nuts, brother. That's money. That's profit, right? It's the same reason that the
Right.
pharmaceutical industry does it, right? If you can go out there and grow your own medicine, oh, you were like a terrorist. You're a corporate terrorist. You don't have a captive audience. They do this stuff because nature provides it all free. And as
Right.
long as nature provides it free, these corporations will buy laws to ban it. And that's one of the biggest dangers of having a silly corporatocracy turned oligarchy and keep acting like it's a democracy. These fire tests are insane. I was just looking at the hemp fire test. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy that we don't move forward on these things.
Well, the thing I want to see is when hemp does actually, and I think it's got enough momentum where Hempcrete in particular will be on board. Even if we don't have processing to process hemp, we can still buy it like in Canada. So at least it's not coming over the ocean. It's just coming across this, imaginary border that exists that separates us from Canada. So I can get hemp all day to build. I don't, that's never been illegal to build with Hempcrete. Um, the thing of it is just assuaging code enforcement, saying, "Hey, look, here's the data on this stuff. Here's what it'll withstand. It's better than your code, whatever." I think Germany had PEX. You're familiar with PEX, right?
Yeah, I used PEX before.
I think they had it 20 years before they made it code here, and now it's the only thing people use for the most part.
That is hilarious. But you know the funny thing? I'm not too far from probably one of the most corrupt cities on the planet called Philadelphia. And I think it's still illegal there. Contractors can't use it. It's illegal. You cannot use PEX because they make too much money on the old sustainable piping. I don't know what they use. Like you can use PVC
Copper.
and I think copper, but you cannot use PEX. PEX is insane. The first time I used PEX, and this is like contractor talk, I don't want to get into it, but it was just insane how easy, quick, and fast it goes up. The amount of money you save in paying, the hours and hours and hours of contractors installing this piping, it's ridiculous. But not only that, when you get a problem, when you have to have something fixed, PEX is so easy. You're not like ripping open walls and changing copper pipes. You're just snaking it out and snaking it back in. But that's going to be boring to most people. Tell me about this. What am I looking at? Are they building with these hemp blocks? Is what you're talking about?
Yeah. So a lot of people have experimented with hemp blocks. The ones I'm talking about from Just Biofiber, they had a great concept. What they did was they made a block that looks like a cinder block. I don't know if you can see my hands. It looks like my screen is right here. Is that right?
I can see your hands. Yeah, I can see your head and your hands. Yep, I can see.
Okay. So there we go. I'll put it like that. So anyway, they make a block exactly like a cinder block, except it's solid. And what they do is they put these square dowels. So it looks exactly like a Lego. It goes together exactly like a Lego. So type in hemp or Just Biofiber. None of those are it. Just hemp. Biofiber.
Biofiber.
Just Biofiber.
Oh, it's the name of the company. Okay.
Yeah. And when you see their blocks, they're incredibly imaginative.
The Legos.
They did build that house in the second picture, but I don't think they've done anything since then. And I tried to go to they were inviting contractors to come to their workshops for free. So you would learn how to build with their product and then, of course, sell their product. I mean, it was kind of ingenious, except I was never able to secure a date for a seminar. Now the guy in sales doesn't even call back. So I don't know what's up with Just Biofiber, but it is an ingenious product if they get it off the ground, because then you're talking no lumber in your building for the frame, for the walls, no lumber at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so they built this house to code without lumber.
Yep. I mean, the roof's probably got trusses in it, and then you can see the timbers for the porch. And I'm sure there's wood accents, but think about how much money you'd save on wood.
How much money you save on everything.
Trees, yeah.
Right. Installation, the trees, the safety, the amount of homes that aren't burning down in fires, not being killed by 5G. That's ingenious. I love that. So that's the building system right there then.
Yep. And it's just like Legos. And I think what you do, if I remember talking to the gentleman, that might have been him pictured back there, I don't know, but I think what you do is you send them your house plans, so you can have an architect draw up your house plans, and then they'll modify it with their blocks. So they'll customize the blocks, then they ship you the blocks, basically, or they come build it.
Wow. I don't know. Hang on. You just said something incredibly sexy to me. So you basically said that you can pick your house out. You can pick your house out, take a picture of it, get the floor plans, whatever, send them to this guy, and he will do your whole plan in hemp blocks and ship them to you for your contractor to build.
I think that's what my understanding was. I talked to him a year ago.
That is insane.
But yeah.
What is the name of his company again?
Just Biofiber.
That's awesome.
And you want to talk about I got to show you this. I met some pretty interesting cats when I was in.
This is it right here. Hold on. I'm
Jamaica.
sorry.
Let me show you this pamphlet.
Is this it right here? Oh, you're going to get the pamphlet. I'm getting all excited. Man, I can build this. Y'all, I can do this. I'm going to do this.
This company, I will gladly plug this company because I thought this was one of the most ingenious things I've ever seen. I was down in Jamaica, and since they're in the Commonwealth of British subjects or whatever, they can do a lot of business with Canada without, I think, tariffs and duties and all that. And I got to looking at this guy, and he had a shingle on the floor, but it was made out of rubber. And I go, what is this? He goes, well, we strip all the metal out of a tire, we melt the rubber down, and then we form shingles with it. The shingles are the same color all the way through, so whatever color you want, so they don't fade. They're made out of rubber, so imagine what hail's going to do when hail hits the roof of your house. And then they're recycling tires, for Christ's sake. I was like, that is the most ingenious thing I've ever seen. So these are the shingles. I'm going to try to show them to you. They look just as good as every other shingle you'll ever see. And I mean, they did one with slate. It was supposed to be slate. So look at this roof. That looks like slate, and it's rubber.
Wow.
And it's barely, he said it's really comparable with asphalt shingles. 50-year warranty on these. 50. So what I want to do is hemp houses with rubber roofs because no hail damage. They're category 4 hurricane rated.
Okay.
I'm like, man, you guys are, I couldn't believe I'd never heard of this before. And I can't believe people aren't doing it now. And anyway, the name of the company is Euro Shield. Can you see that?
Euro Shield.
Euro Shield, yeah. So give those guys business because I would love to see some kind of what's that? Oh, that's just biofiber. They're doing prefab walls there.
Tell me what the hell I'm looking at.
It looks like they precast the wall and then they're just bringing it in and putting it together. That's another option if you have equipment. You'll notice there's a crane there. That could get costly.
It could get costly, but you're still talking about a structure that's going up in what, like a day or two?
Sure. So basically with the spray rigs, where we have to form both sides of the wall when we're putting it in by hand so you can shove the hempcrete down in it. With the spray rig, you only form one side. So you cut the time in half. You form the inside, and then you spray it out the thickness you want, and then you take a scree and you smooth it all out. And then you're done in a day with the spray. And so you still have to have it framed. Right. But, I mean, by the time you're waiting for this guy to show up with these wall panels, you could have the house framed. So there's lots of different ways to approach it. You don't have to just do it by, of course, putting it in by hand. There's hand method, there's spray method, there's block method, and then there's prefab. What I think would work the best for prefab are sheds. Okay. So when you go to Home Depot, let's say we get into Home Depot, Gerard, and they come in and they buy we'll call it Jerry Curl. We'll call it Jerry Curl hemp sheds. No, I'm just kidding. But our names are kind of close to that. But,
we are not going to start a company called Jerry Curl. That's just not going to happen. I can tell you right now. That's not going to happen.
But anyway, if we could get into a big box store and provide these precast hempcrete walls, I mean, it's going to be off to the races. And the great thing about hemp is, and then Carrie just commented, the sound of the saw will not disturb neighbors. Hemp is extremely sound deadening. So for anybody that lives close to an airport, for anybody that lives close to a concert venue, I mean, if you build your house out of hemp, you can pretty much close the windows at night. You're not going to hear quite the noise pollution you'd hear if you were just a stick and frame with siding and fiberglass where the sound will just go right through it. And think about apartment buildings. If you build apartment buildings and put hemp in the floors, they do have 2-story condo units in England that they've done projects on. And actually this Hempcrete book that I showed you earlier, this one's out of, I think if I can show you the title that way, the Hempcrete book. These are British authors. So all the houses in here and all the buildings are pretty much what you'd find in England. But what I was going to try to do is find you this apartment complex they built. If I can get to it somehow, I don't know where it's at. And I have these pages bookmarked. But yeah, so hemp is awesome for sound deadening for sure. And what I'd like to see is music studios use hempcrete in their walls. Then they don't have to put up all that stupid styrofoam. It's anything you can do to eliminate styrofoam or plastic in my book is the way to go.
It's a good thing. The ocean life will appreciate it, as well as the countries that were still blowing up for oil.
Right.
Pretending to fight terrorism.
But I mean, and there's no end to what you can do with this Orstraw, but you see the curve in that wall right there?
Let me go down. I was moving fast. I was going to do something else. Curve in a wall.
Yeah, the one I'm showing you.
Oh.
Look at me. Look at me. Look at that
I see
wall.
you. Yeah.
Beautiful?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just you can form it into whatever shape you want. That's the great thing about hemp. So
You
if
know,
you wanted to do what's that?
no, I'll say that that's where you get me because I mean, my first experience with this was cob houses, and I love being able to shape it. That's what I want to be able to shape a tiny cob house, and you got me on the fence of whether I'm gonna be shaping now a hempcrete house or a cob house. But both are sustainable structures made with sustainable material. It's just cob is a heck of a lot harder than hemp.
So I was going to say, let me save you some trouble. Cob is a hell of a lot harder than hemp.
Oh, I know. I've built with cob
Yeah.
before. We
Leave the
made
cob for the pizza ovens.
Cobb is fun. Get your neighbors together. Go ahead and cancel your gym membership for a little bit. Now, I'm not going to talk bad about Cobb. I love Cobb. It's
Oh, I
just
love it too.
when you get to mixing and carrying those buckets, yeah, you're not going to need that gym membership.
So here's one of the duplexes they built, or the condo units you can see there. See all the condo doors there. So that's hemp.
Yeah. Where is that?
And you can see that's in England, and it's in one moment. I can't see anymore because I'm getting old. It's in Norfolk, like the real Norfolk in England, not Virginia. Yeah, so it's good stuff, man. I mean, there's no reason why my phone's not ringing off the hook right now, but it's not. So
Yeah, there is. There's great reasons why. Fox, MSN, CBS, MSNBC, all the big media corporations in bed with the big housing corporations in bed with big concrete and big oil and big government and big everything. That's probably why your phone's not ringing off the hook because people people don't do their research and these things aren't being promoted like all the crap ways to build and all the old technology. And I think this is probably pretty much like the solar industry and anything else. The big guys hold the industry back until they re-kit and they get ready to take it over. And then they'll let you transition. Then it'll be advertised and it'll be consumerized and try to get people to convert over after they know how to make money on it. I think hemp, you're probably getting in their way. One, because they're not ready to build it. Two, once it's built, it sounds like there's not much else to do. If houses aren't burning down and not falling down and not getting mold, you're not having a lot of problems. You have a sustainable house that you possibly can build yourself. There's no kickbacks to local government, state government, whoever else. You're in their way. And it's like, how do you make a big industry off of not having a consumable house? Like, that's what you're dealing with. I think you're dealing with a housing industry that made a house a consumable thing. But we come from people who used to build houses, and you'd have 5, 6 generations of people living in the same exact house. So I think you're up against that.
Well, I mean, so the good thing is, like the people in Texas, they were great. They're just outside of Tyler, Texas, which is east of Dallas. I guess they, on their piece of property, and plus it's Texas, they didn't have any codes to worry about. I mean, they built everything to code, but there was no like inspector out there coming out. So I still want to do, I'm trying to think of how to do this dream of mine. I really want to found a city, a town, not a commune. I don't like the word commune, but definitely a piece of property. Like I saw a piece of property in upstate New York, 290 acres for $225,000. And it was gorgeous. And I was just like, that's what I need. And what I'd like to do is get a piece of property like that and be able to build houses for people. Because one of the things I find amazing is when I was researching before I had the money to do it, and of course it's harder to get a construction loan than it is to just go get a mortgage. But it's so much cheaper anyway, if you're even going to build one of these stick houses, to do it yourself as a general contractor using subcontractors than it is to buy one that's already done, because that's where they're charging you 3 times what it cost them to build it. But these small houses, like straw bale, you could build a 750-foot straw bale house for less than $30,000. I mean, you basically do a post and beam, and then you put the straw bales in. I mean, however much your straw bales cost you, that's what it's going to cost you. I mean, and then of course you got to do the plaster and you've got to do all the interior. That's not included in that number. But I mean, if you get away with building a 750 square foot house, which is plenty big for most people, it's probably too big for what I need, but you know, it's a cut. What was that?
That's
You
my
got an eagle
phone.
in there? Oh,
Yeah, no, I do bird calls.
right
It's
on.
funny. It scares people. You can tell people if they grew up in the suburbs or the mountains.
Yeah, well, I was just waiting to see a big hawk swoop in and carry you away.
Right, exactly. If
So,
they actually spend that time outdoors, they duck.
yeah. So anyway, this is a thing we could do if we could just get a spot to do it. I mean, people, what I would envision is you mentioned the Amish earlier. I'm pretty sure the Amish don't pay for anything within the village. They get tourists to come from outside to buy all their stuff, whether it's gems or heaters or wood products or blacksmithing products, whatever. So what I envision is getting a group of people who are like-minded, and out of 370 million, I got to think there's a couple tens of thousands of people who don't want to be in the matrix anymore. So what I'd like to see happen is be able to buy a piece of property, start building these houses, be off grid. Each house would be a Faraday cage. I'd prefer to not see cell phones, but whatever. At least not build anything that's conducive to getting a good signal. So we could use landlines connected to each houses, and even spaces for cars where you're not driving through the forest. If you want to get from point A to point B, take an electric golf cart or something, or a snowmobile. It depends on where we're at, I guess. And then I heard a guy today when you were on your show, he was like, "Oh, they'll find you, they'll get," and I'm like, "No, I mean, we can choose to live off grid." And I'm not talking like,
what? Hang on, what happened? What was this?
oh, I don't remember the comment today when I mentioned being able to build these off grid houses. He's like, "Well, they'll still get you with geoengineering." I'm like, well, yeah, but we can make it harder. You know what I mean? If we sit the way we are now, we're making it very easy for them because they've got our cameras, they've got our cell phones, they've got geoengineering, they've got everything. If you could do a hempcrete house that could stop EMFs, possibly stop bullets, which comes in handy when you try to live off grid in this country, at Ruby Ridge and Waco, but just to name a few. Anyway, it just seems to me to be the only viable option to fight the bullshit that's rolling down the hill. And it is rolling down the hill. If we want to be at the bottom and swim in it, great. If you don't, go somewhere up the mountain where you don't have to tolerate as much of it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I do want to get that going. My problem is I'm not a millionaire. If I was, it would already be started. So the first thing is to get the Hempcrete sprayer. I really need. They're about 40 grand. And then you get trained by the company. And then with that training, I could then go on to train crew after crew after crew. And if you're talking about, yeah, I agree with Sandy's comment there. And it's not a control thing. It's getting people that want to be there. So I started out as a high school teacher, right? And I always kind of loathed teaching middle and high school because the kids didn't want to be there. And I thought, man, if I could teach community college, people that don't want to be there don't show up. So that's the same kind of mindset. I think like-minded people would be able to function into a society like this. And I mean, get skilled people, get farmers, get horticulturists, get permaculturists, get chicken farmers, get sheep ranchers for wool. I'm not a sheep meat eater, but you know what I mean? There's things we can do to make it like it used to be. I mean, people used to use what they need, produce what they need, eat what they need without all this excess. Now, of course, if you were doing some sort of off-grid community, you would want root cellars to store, the melons, the potatoes, the onions, the carrots, all the root vegetables. I want to return to that. I'm tired of, electricity other than if you can produce it yourself, which I'm not in a spot to do here. There's just a better way to do things. And I hate that we keep thinking that we're smarter than we used to be and we need a better way to do stuff than we've already figured out how to do it. So yeah, like that, someone's built a beautiful food garden, and I see a lot of people online doing this in their yards. I'm not talking too loud, am I? I always feel like I'm talking really loudly, like I'm yelling at the computer. But
yell at the computer, bro. It's perfect volume.
Okay, great.
You gotta yell at it.
So anyway, there's just a better way to do this, and my fear is that we're drastically running out of time. I mean, you got the wildfires, you got the Trump shenanigans in China, you got the economic downturn looming. All of this shit is like coming together into a perfect storm, and we're going to be the little guys on the boat with the wave way up here that's just going to crush us, right? So I want to get this started like today. Like right now, I'm using electric heat that's kicking out a ridiculous amount of heat because it's 10 degrees outside in October in Colorado when it was 70 last week, and it's going to be 60 again next week. And we were dry as could be, and now it's all this moisture's dropping, all this snow. I don't get it. Well, California burns because the jet stream has been kicked way up past California, but we'll imagine it's just nature, right?
Well, if you blame nature, then you don't have to do anything about it. You can fix it with a tax. It's easy.
Right. just get Greta out there to talk about it.
That's it. You just get a child out there, tell everybody you just need to pay your taxes, and climate change will be okay. And then I'm not even going to go there. Somebody mentioned that to me the other day, and it's so special, the silly shenanigans we fall for.
So what I would like to see is, when I say self-sustainability, I mean, I want people, like I even thought about if I could get this started, or maybe I just do this anyway, start a boarding school, like a high school type setting with certified teachers. You can get a chemistry teacher or math teacher, whatever, but teach the students practical skills. Teach them how to sew, teach them how to collect chicken eggs, teach them how to change brakes on a car, teach them how to sharpen an axe if they need to sharpen an axe, teach them how to split wood with an axe, because one of these days, maybe there's no electricity, maybe there's no gasoline for a wood splitter. You got to do it the way the people that were here 200 years ago had to do it. Teach people skills they need, because what they're learning right now, I mean, this business, playing on the phones and video games, and of course, me and you and I got suckered into video games in the 80s when we were kids because we're like, oh, what's this? It's a brand new thing.
There's some dots on the screen. Let's play football.
Hey, it's beautiful outside. Oh, I got to shoot these asteroids. I mean, it's just like, I really do. And I don't think the millennials are the answer. I've dealt with many people between 20 and 30 with responsibility type issues, and they are awful. They have the answers, but they don't know the problems, right? I mean, it's just like we need to train people to live self-sustainably. I mean, that's the end of that rant, but it's just not happening. These Montessori schools are great for what they are, I guess. Public education is a joke. I mean, I remember when I graduated my senior year, I had 2 or 3 study halls, a gym class. I mean, I was like leaving campus at lunch when we didn't have off-campus lunch. But because there was nothing to do. I mean, Jesus, if I would have got started on I wish I would have started growing weed in high schools, what I really wish I would have started doing, because now I could be a master grower now that cannabis is becoming legal. But anyway, there's just things that we've lost, like even sewing a button back on a shirt. I mean, how many people know how to do that?
Well, only crazy people. Only crazy people, because crazy people are the only ones who are like preparing for like bad times, apparently. And this is why I used to love this show. Hell, you're talking my thing, which I really don't like to talk about a lot, but
which one? Which part?
Oh, just being sustainable, like going back to being independent, being strong people. Stop being these weak little whiny, utility needy big government needy little children, right? Going back to doing what all of your grandparents told us all what to do, which was to take care of yourself. Don't rely on other people that you don't have to rely on. Rely on your neighbors, rely on your community. Don't rely on a government that's 1,000 miles away or 500 miles away. Be sustainable. And somehow that's been turned into being crazy now, which was a great show. I love Doomsday Preppers. It was But
I don't think I ever watched that show, but I should check it out.
Oh, you should. This is my kids and I. We used to have a lot of fun watching this show. It just basically it went through scenarios of what people think how society will collapse. It was fun. You had the people talking about currency collapse, zombie apocalypse, nuclear war, whatever. But the interesting thing was there was between all the entertainment, there were very serious messages on how to survive. How to grow food, how to save food. This is Facebook. I don't think you can have gun pictures on Facebook anymore, can you?
Yeah, look at that. Look to the right there. It looks like it is the second one.
Oh yeah. Right? Yeah, well you had all of them, right? And so they would have these shows that made it seem crazy, like, oh, they're gun nuts. They're survivors. These people are dangerous. And really they were just like, no, in times when people don't have food, they get moody and they come in your house to steal the food, right? So they had guns, but the whole point was they made it out to be this funny thing, right? They made it out to be this, oh, this is ridiculous. Look at the crazy people. They think, depressions come, and they think Hurricane Katrina's happened, and they think recessions happen. They think currency collapses.
Well, see,
Let's
what
laugh
I'd
at
like
all the
to
crazy
know,
people that listen to what their elders taught them.
right. What I'd like to know is how much money do these people have? Because to build an underground vault, I can't even imagine. They're either extremely capable with like backhoes and stuff like that, so maybe they do
It was all of it.
excavating.
It was
But I
all of
want to know
it.
because, like, I don't have the money right now to do that.
Right. Well, it was all of it. I mean, you had very poor people that took like trailers and was like the shipping containers, broke them apart. You had other people who just had like bug out bags with tents and food and life straws and matches. Then you had the people who had money, who had big bunkers and they had things built for them and they had teams of people doing things. So it was the whole gambit, right? Like,
Right.
I don't think that it's wise if someone thinks that you need to go back to being sustainable, then your preparation for it's immediate, right? Like in terms of how much time do we have, nobody knows. Right? Do you know how to can food? If the answer is no, then you learn how to can food. Do you know how to grow, how to grow tomatoes? Then you need to know how to do it. Do you know how to save seeds? No, then you can start doing that. And in time, I mean, at least you're picking up skill sets that, our ancestors tried to hand down to us because they were smart enough to know that bad times always come.
Right.
And it's smart to simply just be prepared for them. And hopefully they don't come. Hopefully this is all crazy and these people are all nuts, but these people are historically correct. These people are historically accurate in terms of bad times coming, and be prepared. Otherwise, you and your family are going to have a real tough time.
Yep. And that's one thing I did for the first time myself. My grandma used to can. Jesus, when she died, we cleaned out her basement. And I was just like, what do you guys do? And they're like throwing all these glass jars into a dumpster, all this canned food. And I was like, I mean, not that any of it, some of it wasn't good. You could tell where the seals had broken. But I was just going nuts because they were smashing all the jars because the jars are reusable. I mean, even if something's been canned in them for 20 years, you can wash it, But they just lost it all because it was easier. But I did do canning last year. I've got 2 pressure canners. I've got 2 food dehydrators. I've got a couple 100 pounds of rice and beans, but that's about the extent of my prepping right now, aside for some other things that I'm not going to name on a Facebook channel, but don't try to come steal my stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the smartest thing people can do right now, is information, right? Learn how to do things. Understand
Berkey water filters too.
What's that?
Berkey water filters.
Berkey water filter, the life straw.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, you can, what is it? You can go almost 3 months without food, right? But you can't go 3 days without water. And so like knowing what is the most significant, what is the highest priority. And like, this was a good episode right here. This was the guy who built a big, massive, I don't know if he built the castle. Yeah, he built it. He built the castle and they were preparing, trying to teach his kids and stuff like that. You can have fun with it. But I think the key is information. The key is, go ahead and buy the book for Christmas, right? How to can, how to grow food, how to build a structure, how to make a cabin, how to heat yourself. And one of the books that I love the most, it was called The Earthen Greenhouse, right? How do you make an earthen greenhouse so you can grow food if you're in the heat of the desert or the cold of the northern climate? How much food do you need? And, you can just take those books and shove them away. But if we ever do get into any sort of a rough situation, you can pretty much expect power not to be there. You will not be going out to YouTube to learn how to grow cucumbers, right?
Right. There's a couple really good books you can get in like Barnes and Noble, I noticed, on homesteading. They're like 2 inches thick and they're like newspaper, but they tell you how to do everything and tell you how to, butcher a chicken if you need to, how to build a gray water, catchment system, all this stuff. And there's some really incredible things out there. And I have a couple books on, I just got all my books out again and I was kind of giggling because I've got all these books on what to do in a, life or death situation and all that stuff. But I found one that was called bushwhacking, but I'm trying to see if I have it.
Yeah, that's important. That's what Lori's talking about is foraging and growing.
Yeah.
What is food? What can you eat? What does wild lettuce look like? What do plantains look like? What are the edible plants in my area? Just simple, basic stuff, which is, it can be fun. But if anything ever happens, you and your kids actually know what to do. I fall back on a lot of the stuff we did in Boy Scouts, right? How to start a fire, how to build a lean-to, how to stay warm, how to dry off if you get wet in the winter. What does that say? It
says Bushcraft 101, a field guide to the art of wilderness survival. So books like this are awesome. I mean, they've got everything in there: how to find water, how to collect water, how to build a debris hut shelter if you're, in the freezing environment. I mean, how to make twine from bark and then how to tie it. I mean, all that kind of stuff is just amazing. It's all the stuff that people that came before us knew how to do, like secondhand knowledge, and we've lost stuff like that, over the years. Hey, I know you probably don't have people, take bathroom breaks on your show, but I really got to go to the bathroom. You got 2 seconds?
Go ahead. We're going to go.
I know.
Drop.
I know you can talk for a while, so I'll just turn it over.
But I prepare for it, brother. I just drank a whole cup of coffee. I have to pee right now, but we're going to go ahead and wrap this up in 10 minutes. But go ahead. I'll talk through it. Okay. I'll just look at the comments real quick. And Sandy's talking about how you need seeds. You really, really need seeds. What I do, Sandy, is like right now, I've got a bunch of tomatoes that are still on the vine. And they're probably not going to make it through the week because I think this Saturday, we have frost. I'm actually going to take them off, and instead of eating them, I'll just throw them in a jar, right? And you can look on YouTube and see easy ways to save tomato seeds. But I always make sure I go through the winter with a bunch of seeds that most times I don't even use in the spring. I don't have enough room to even plant them. But it's always important to have seeds. Big point. Besides, you can buy seeds online and you can keep them for like 10 years if you put them in the fridge. Buy your seeds, put them in the fridge. One thing I stink at, I got to do better at, is a lot of my seeds, I'll leave them in the greenhouse and it gets warm there, and your seeds don't last as long as if they get warm, and certainly if they get wet. So definitely have seeds. Grow food, save your seeds. Absolutely what Susan is saying. Bushcraft 101 sounds interesting. It might actually save someone's life. And Christine, I think the way I think of things is not even about saving my life. Like, it might be my kids. It might be a friend. I might be gone, but someone picks up the book and is like, oh, wow, Bushcraft 101. So, it's good to have these things around. I think I have a picture up of food right there. You should have a food pantry. If you don't have a food pantry, you need to get yourself a food pantry, and if you don't have the money to do it, then just think about it in a more sustainable means of anytime you go to the grocery store, and you need to get 3 or 4 cans of beans, well, get 5, get 6, stick the 2 on the shelf and kind of don't necessarily forget about them, but slowly start to buy more what you need. I personally, I don't expect some sort of massive collapse. I think something simple will happen, like our currency will collapse. And as the banks are resetting, things might get a little out of hand. Who knows what could happen? EMP, solar flare, things happen. I think our government will probably pull things back together in a matter of months. We're just too profitable. We are slap happy slaves, and they will not let our free labor go. Where they're tax farm. So I think that probably within a couple months, things will be put back together if bad things happen. But you always want to make sure that you at least have, 30 days worth of food, maybe 2 months worth. I think FEMA, what is their default? Is it 3 months? You're supposed to have 3 months worth of food or something like that they published. So it's not crazy talk. It's not crazy. FEMA just doesn't want you in their camp. They got room for you, but they want you to stay at home. So it's just wise to do what your grandmother did. It's wise to do what your grandparents did. And even my parents, they always had this big old food pantry full of food. It's not doomsday prepping. It's knowing that bad things always happen.
I'm down with root cellars for sure. I think that's the best way to go, because then you can store all that stuff underground and you don't need any electricity.
Yeah. I'm down with root cellars, but I also learned how to make solar panels, wind vanes, a
Yeah,
walk turbine out of a ceiling fan. I mean, I did these things with my kids. They were like fun little projects I talk about every now and then. The goal is, how do you survive when there's no power and there's no utilities, right? And then you build up from there. So how do you survive with solar panels? How do you repair them? How do you keep them from getting broken? Do you have to clean them? How do you install them? Very simple things. But you always want to go back to the core base, which I think someone mentioned before, which is like foraging. What is food? What is the food around your house? People should be planting fruit trees. I mention it all the time. Plant an apple tree, plant a nut tree, start going online and looking up just to have them. Plant perennials. It's great to plant the tomatoes and everything else, but make sure your yard has food in it. And it's not for you. You may not be around. If nothing ever happens, then the deer got food to eat. But the whole point is like start putting. It's insanity that we live in a country full of 300 million plus people, and the vast majority of houses have no food at all. Nothing edible tree-wise that's grown on their property. When bad things happen, people do bad things, and it's good to have a little bit of food. Put in a grapevine. These are perennial. These are things you don't have to touch. You don't have to do anything with.
Who's Christine? Are you talking to me or Gerard?
Are you on a phone call after? I don't know. They might be talking to each other. I don't know.
She's just asking if somebody's up to a phone call afterwards. I just didn't know who she was talking to. So look, and in hemp too, if you can get some industrial hemp seeds, that's where those omega-3s. I mean, when you go to the store and buy whole hemp seed, the hemp hearts, that's industrial hemp. So, I mean, you could eat that all day and get as much protein and omegas as you need. I mean, it takes a while to get the seed, but, start growing it now. You just throw that stuff out and it grows like weeds, which also reminds me, I've got a couple books that are called things like Eat the Weeds, because most of the plants that people treat as noxious. I was on a campaign. I was almost going to wage war on Lawn Doctor because they kept sending me advertisements killing dandelions. And I'm like, you people are idiots.
You're nuts. Yeah. Dandelions will save your life.
That is a very new. Yeah. I'm like, quit spraying poison on your yard, on your kids, on your pets, and killing this thing that the bees need, that you can eat. I mean, I make dandelion root tea every year, and all you got to do is yank them all up by the roots, wash them off, chop them up, dry them out in an oven, and then you've got roasted dandelion root tea, which there is scientific data that says it fights cancer. So, I mean, I got to where I was foraging in this place where I live now. I foraged 20 pounds of oyster mushrooms, and I'd never foraged mushrooms before other than morels, which are very easy to detect. Turns out that oyster mushrooms are very easy to identify as well. I foraged rose hips, spearmint, raspberry leaves for tea, dandelions. I mean, there were grapes. There are wild apple trees around here. There are wild plum trees. There's everything in this little valley, which is kind of surprising because it's so arid out here. But like this year, I've been watching. So I've been here for 4 years. 3 out of the 4 years, there's been a late snow that kills all the blooms. So last year I had this awesome harvest. I made jelly with wild plums, wild grapes, and wild choke cherries, which is what the Indians sustain themselves on. The Arapaho used to dwell around here. And that's how they got their vitamin C, was from choke cherries. But then every spring there'll be a late snow, with the exception of 1 year, and it just kills everything. So this year, no apples, no plums, no choke cherries, no grapes. I don't think that's an accident.
No, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I think I'm too old. I think when you get old in America, you start to see there are no profitable coincidences. There's no, if it gains power for corporations or money, or if it gains power for government or money for corporations, it's not a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. The other thing I was going to say there is, if you live in a cold climate, know how to start a fire, know how to build a heater, Here, I think it was going back 3 or 4 years ago. No, maybe about 5 years ago. We had these a couple major winter storms, and we lost power for like 7 days, right? And a few people died in Philadelphia because they froze to death in the house. And it's just like, to hear someone put it, said after the first day, your house was a few degrees warmer than outside. After the second day, your house is pretty much the same temperature outside. So if it's in the teens outside, it's in the teens indoors. You should probably have a kerosene heater. That's always a good thing to have. You can get them even at the big box stores now for like $50. Throw it in the garage, throw some emergency kerosene in there just in case. A kerosene heater may not heat up your whole house depending on how big your house is, but it could save your life, right? If you do find yourself without power for 7 days, and your whole community's out, you can be in big trouble. Like what amazed me when the power went out for 7 days is exactly how unprepared our ignorant little silly governments are. They're not prepared. They're prepared for a few houses to lose power, right? But when you have an entire quarter of a state, you have multiple counties losing power, they throw their hands in the air. Like it's all on you. If somebody mentioned Sandy, if you don't have a generator, you know how to start a fire, you didn't get a kerosene heater, you can't take care of yourself, you will die in your house. It doesn't matter if you paid your taxes or not. They can't handle that type of a mess, which is the problem with building an entire nation full of dependent people on an infrastructure that can't support it, right? You need to know how to take care of yourself. You need to know how to take care of your family. Chris mentioned a wood burning stove, right? Or a rocket mass heater. I mean, and this was another Cobb thing we did. We built rocket mass heaters for fun. And they work really, really well. You can build a big Cobb bench and a rocket mass heater. Use very little wood, and you can do it for fun, or even just a Cobb oven. So you can cook in it, but you also can keep your house warm with it if we actually do get in some sort of a bad situation. But taking care of your family, that's not the government's job. That's your job. This is where I'll defend them. It's not their job. That's on you. You're an adult. You're a grown adult who has a history book. You can look back in history and realize every civilization that's ever been started has failed. Every fiat currency that's ever been invented has collapsed. Bad times always happen. If you're not prepared for it, it's on you. It's not like they don't tell us. FEMA tells right on their website. They tell you need to be prepared for a disaster, and they don't say that because they're making it up. They say that because it's true.
How many of them have they caused? That's what I want to know.
Well, yeah, that would be a fun show to go through.
So look, another thing, the thing that sucks about everything you just said, I agreed with. But like when I was in Springfield, Illinois, I bought my first house. I was like, man, I'm going to recycle everything. And I was recycling everything. I had very little trash, but because of a town ordinance, I had to pay for trash service. So even though you're on your own when the shit hits the fan, while it's going great, they're extorting. Try to go off grid. Try to take the electrical off of your house and see what they tell you. Because then they're like, oh, you can't do that now because you're a ward of the state,
Same with sewer, same with water. Like I didn't really realize that, but right. If they don't have plumbing in your area, most of these townships, they'll say, okay, well, you can use well water. But the minute that they have a tap for you, they will push you over to plumbing, whether you use it or not. They need everybody tapped in because they're making a dependent nation of people. They want a nation full of children. I think George Carlin put it best where he said they want the people just smart enough to work the machines, but dumb enough to not know why. Right? They want you to go to work. They want you to pay your taxes, but they need you to be dependent on these systems. And so when problems happen, you've got to run to them for help. The same way. Well, you ever see the moms who don't let their kids grow up? They don't let them. They carry them everywhere. Dads do it too, but they create this needy thing because they're getting a fulfillment out of making this child at the age of 10 that they're carrying around like a baby. They're being fulfilled. Well, government's being fulfilled. If you need government, that means they get more money. That means they get bigger. And it's just an economic thing. To me, it's not even conspiracy theory. It's just common damn sense. Government needs power. Where do they get their power? from you being weak and going to them and crying about your neighbor or crying about something you don't know how to do yourself. Adults got to go back to fixing things and solving their own problems. So I don't know how we went from hemp to off-grid community, but I'm gonna let you have the last couple words. Well, and I gotta go because I gotta go pee. So I'm sorry. I have a tiny bladder, man. I don't know. Yeah. Just in an apocalyptic situation, we can be in a firefight. I'm just gonna need a pecan or something because
that's right. That's right.
Like, hang on, everybody, stop, and hey, can you stop shooting? Jordan, I gotta pee.
So a couple of things. Yeah. One, people laugh at me because I'm on Craigslist all the time buying hand tools. I probably got a couple hundred shovels, rakes, pitchforks, iron rakes. I've got all these tools because, I mean, when it comes to it, if you don't have electricity or gasoline, you got to use hand tools. So get a lot of hand tools. Two, one of the reasons why I try to work with and uplift native reservations is because they're basically treated exactly like you say, to the nth degree, like they're wards of the state. Like they need the federal government to be watching over everything they do, which is absolutely false. They need their sovereignty is what they need. Hemp will give them sovereignty. Hemp will give a lot of people sovereignty. So we're not wards of the state. I didn't sign up for this shit. I don't care what my birth certificate is. I didn't vote. I didn't get a vote to say, hey, I'm a part of the corporation. So I don't want to be.
Right.
And then you reminded me of one other thing, and I'll be damned if I didn't forget it. Or you were asking about how we got off the topic of hemp, but it was all related. I mean, it's all related. All this off-grid stuff.
This is how it goes. When we talk, it just goes wherever it goes.
I know. But I do think with rocket mass heaters, which I have I've got a copy of an ebook I can send to people. I'm not going to say who wrote it because I don't want to get in trouble, but I paid for it. I would gladly share it if you want to see exactly how a rocket mass heater is built. Wood burning stoves. Everybody in a cold climate should have a wood stove in their house as a source of emergency heat. I've got a little Honda generator. Not everybody can afford them. I got mine really cheap, but it's brand new basically. But you still need gasoline to run it. So once the gasoline's gone, it's irrelevant. So the wood stove, the hand tools, the Berkey water filter, stuff you can do in an analog situation, I'll say, instead of digital. So, because when the power goes down, V for Vendetta. That's what I wanted to mention because you've said several basic lines right out of that movie. When the detective realizes that it's elements within the government who have released the viruses and then turn around and had the antidotes, he said, when you've been around as long as I have, you stop believing in coincidences. And he started looking at the facts and the guy, he goes, I want to ask you a question. And I don't care whether you answer it or not. I just want to say it out loud. What if the events that happen were set off by elements within our own government? Would you really want to know? And his partner goes, well, yeah. He goes, even if it meant they caused all this death and destruction in order to gain power. It's something like that. You got to watch V for Vendetta if you've never watched it. To me, it's the most hidden in plain sight, in your face. This is what's going on movie that I've ever seen. I love it. So
yeah, I haven't seen it. I just pulled it up. That'll be my homework. I'm gonna go watch V for Vendetta. But look, let's do this. Let's I think we should do a off-grid survival preparedness. Bad things always happen. Storms and power goes out video. I think we should do that because I think we just walked into like a great topic, but I have to run, so I'd love to continue. So if you don't mind, let's make a schedule and come back and let's have a bad things happen talk.
Okay.
All right, cool. Well, this was the hemp talk.
Well, I'm supposed to go to the East Coast again for Thanksgiving, so maybe I should swing by. I mean, it's in a month.
Cool. Yeah, if you come on by, we can do a video live. Very cool. We got other things we got to talk about anyway, so I'm going to let you go. I got to go. People, thank you for joining. This has been Kelly Thornton and Gerard talking about hemp, and we #all gonna die. But you don't have to, it doesn't have to hurt. It doesn't. We all gonna die. Everybody dies. You don't get to live. We all gonna die. Just make sure you have some food and some seeds and things grown. So when you all gonna die, your family got something to carry on. Now let me get out of here. Hey, Kelly, it's been awesome talking to you. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody have a good night now. Bye-bye.
See ya.